Welcome to West Virginia University College of Law. I'm delighted to have all of you here today for this very special occasion. Today is the day that we officially launch our Child Family Law Clinic, or as some call it, our Child and Family Advocacy Clinic. There are many special guests today in the audience that I'd like to recognize, and I'm going to ask you to stand. First, I'd like the members of our visiting committee to stand today. We're very honored to have you here for this program. Our visiting committee is made up of alums and friends, and they meet with me twice a year to give me the kind of advice that I need, whether it's good advice, positive critique, or negative critique. It's always very welcome, and I thank you all for taking time from your busy schedules to support the law school in the way that you do. I also would like to welcome the professors, the members of our faculty that are here today, if all of you would stand. And there's one member of our faculty here who did not stand, but I'm going to call him out. Our new intellectual property professor is here visiting today, Mr. Sean Tu. I would also like to point out that the founders of the new clinic are here. Professor Valerie Vidic, who is also our Associate Dean for Faculty Research and Development. Her able associate, Professor Suzanne Weiss, and Dr. Paul, who I believe came in. There you are. Would you all mind please standing? Please stand. You're going to hear more about the role that they've played in developing this very, very special clinic that we're launching today. And finally, I would like to welcome Chief Justice Margaret Workman, who is here with us today. The Honorable Justice Workman is one of the first members of the court that I met when I came to West Virginia University in 1995. I consider her a very wonderful friend to me personally and also of the law school, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. We also have with us today the Honorable Randall A. Minor, whom many of you know here as Randy. Randy is the judge, family court judge for Preston County, Monongalia County, and another county? Just two. Okay, Monongalia and Preston counties. And so I'm very, very happy to welcome Judge Randall Minor back with us today. He used to be the director of our Appalachian Center for Law and Public Service, and we're very, very happy to have you with us today. Today is a very wonderful day for us. Our clinic is a clinic that just started in August of this year. One very important aspect of it, you'll be hearing about it, is the medical legal partnership with the West Virginia University Hospital. And you will hear more about that during the program. My job this morning actually is to say some wonderful things, which is easy to do, about Chief Justice Margaret Workman. I want to say some wonderful things about her because this is her second term on the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, and each time Chief Justice Workman has served, she has focused her work on the welfare of children. And I want to give you a huge thank you from the West Virginia University College of Law and the children of the state for everything you have done. As I said earlier, it's a great honor for me to welcome Chief Justice Workman because in 1995, when I was a newbie professor in West Virginia, she was so gracious to me and so welcoming and made me feel that I could contribute in West Virginia. And here I am 15 years later, and I'm so very happy that she made me feel welcome and that I have had the opportunity to serve this College of Law. Chief Justice Workman was elected for this term to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals in November 2008. She was previously elected in November of 1988 when she had the honor of becoming the first woman ever elected to the West Virginia Supreme Court and the first woman ever elected to statewide office in West Virginia. A huge, huge accomplishment. What is even more remarkable, I think, about Chief Justice Workman is that she started out in 1988 with a vision that one person on the court with a mission could bring the rest of the court and the rest of the state along with her to finally pay attention to the welfare of children in West Virginia. Many years have gone by since she initially took the bench, and I think everyone in this room who is familiar with West Virginia, with its children, and with its court system knows that we owe to Justice Workman a huge thank you for the developments that she has brought to the state in the support of children and children's welfare. It is a different world here for children than it was. It is a huge accomplishment, and it is a great honor to have her here with us today to talk with us about the clinic, the significance of the clinic, and the other work she's done on behalf of children. I want to make a few remarks about Judge Minor before I take my seat. I've told you that he was the director here of our Appalachian Center for Law and Public Service. He woke up one morning and suddenly decided he was going to run for elected office. We were both in mourning and celebrating. We absolutely didn't want to lose him within the walls of this building, but we could not think of anyone better to support for the position of family court judge in Monongalia and Preston County. And I want to thank you, Randy, for not allowing us to be complacent, for getting all of the faculty support to help you win the election. Congratulations on winning the election, and we're so happy to claim you as our family court judge. Thank you very much.
Good morning, or I guess it's good afternoon now. I'm Margaret Workman, and thank you, Dean, for that glowing introduction. I would like a copy of that. I'll use that in the future. That was good. Didn't deserve all that. You know, as all of you know, everything that we accomplish in the legal system is a collaborative effort. And one of the things I wanted to focus on in my brief remarks is the collaboration that has been done between the Supreme Court in its administrative role and the law school, and a collaboration that I hope will continue and grow even more. Today, for this dedication of the Family and Child Law Clinic, which I think is such an incredible idea and such an exciting, and I understand the students who've been participating already have dealt with some very difficult issues and have done it very well. You know, last year in January of 2010, then Chief Justice Davis came to the law school, and she announced the formation of a class called Child Protection in the Law, taught by Catherine Munster. I don't know if Catherine's here today or not, but she is a phenomenal, has been a phenomenal advocate for children for many years. And having looked at some of the comments that the students who have taken that class have written, it demonstrates that it has been a very good experience and a very effective class. When the dean was giving me credit for some of the things that I've done, both administratively and judicially, there really are so many others. I know Catherine Munster worked with me back on my first tenure on the court when I wanted to develop rules governing child abuse and neglect cases. And some of the rules that we have now in effect as a result of that effort, I think have really improved the system for children, especially abused and neglected children. And I remember one snowy evening, we sat at the Supreme Court, Catherine and I, and then Justice Cleckley, and we knew that if we really wanted to get some rules passed of any kind, we had to get him on board. And the more it snowed, the longer we sat there, and by the end of the evening, we had worked through every rule, later presented them to the court, and they were approved. And I think, obviously, like any set of rules, they've been tweaked through the years, but I think they've been very good in helping the legal system be more effective in dealing with child abuse and neglect. You know, the court has placed a very high priority on children's interests for several years, and when I say that, I mean not only judicially, which obviously we have, but also administratively. Back when I was on the court the first time, we created what we called the Broadwater Committee, chaired by then Circuit Judge, later Federal Judge Craig Broadwater, who's an incredible, outstanding judge and fortunately passed away. But that committee then became the Court Improvement Committee. And we are working not only on seeing to it that the system is better for kids who are abused and neglected, but also doing a lot of educational projects like the Laws program, where we go out to a high school every year and we actually hear real cases and have lawyers then brief the students about the issues and so forth. The Robes to School, where a lot of judges go out and read to children wearing their robes, hoping to bridge that gap and make sure that kids know that judges are people they want to respect in society. And I think one of the things that we've really wanted to do is to continue the collaboration with the law school. We've done that in the training. We've done training at the court for more than a decade for judges and prosecutors and attorneys, foster parents, DHHR caseworkers, CASA workers, law enforcement officers, all those involved in the child abuse and neglect process. And in 2008, the court and the law school began collaborating to present these conferences. And we're having 3 of these, by the way, if anyone or any students are interested. They're free, and there will be one in July. Or actually, all of them, I think, are in July, but one is in Bridgeport, one's in Logan, and one's at Snowshoe. So I urge anybody who can participate to go to those conferences. We also have done several videos, one of which is I brought copies, or you can go on the website of the Supreme Court and view it if you wish. And our court marshal, Jess Gundy, has those copies if anyone would like them. That really is a useful tool for young attorneys and their clients. And I'm just so thrilled that this clinic is carrying forth this work. And I'm so thrilled that we are actually training young lawyers on how to advocate for children. Because the fact is that children really are the weakest and most voiceless segment of our society. And so I'm very honored to be able to be here today to participate in this dedication and to know that this great work is being done. I'm so proud of the students and the professors and the law school. I think, you know, you read in a national publication that the WVU College of Law is now one of the top law schools in the country with regard to public service. That really makes me proud as a WVU Law School grad. So continue the good work. We're very proud of you. And if we can do anything at the Supreme Court to help or to work with you further, please let us know. Thank you.
I want to thank Val for giving me the opportunity to come back to help celebrate the Child and Family Law Clinic today. It's so nice to be back at the law school and to see old friends and colleagues. I've missed you. Probably one of the biggest challenges I face in my new job as family court judge is trying to figure out where the truth lies in many of my cases. It seems like almost on a daily basis I'm presented with conflicting stories about child abuse or neglect or spousal abuse, drug addiction, abandonment or the alternative theory, parental alienation. And, you know, one thing I guess it shouldn't surprise me given what's at stake in these cases is that people lie. And one thing I've learned is that I don't have any kind of superpower ability to tell, you know, where the truth is. And consider for a moment the kinds of things I'm deciding. I mean, I have to decide, you know, how children are going to be raised or what kind of relationship they're going to have with their parents or whether this person is a danger to this person and might actually harm them or I mean, you know, when you're making these kind of decisions, you want to get it right. And I can tell you the answers aren't always obvious. About a year and a half ago, I began appointing law students and their supervisors from the clinic as guardian ad litems in some of my more problematic cases. And then when I found out about Val's new child and family law clinic, I began appointing teams from that clinic as well. And I can't say enough about how helpful the students have been in some really very difficult cases. The quality of their investigations, the quality, sometimes voluminous nature of their reports have just been very helpful to the court. And they've also been very helpful with another big challenge I have, which is follow-up. I handle about 1,200 matters a year. And I simply don't have the time or the resources to keep bringing people back again and again for status hearings to see what's happening in these cases. I spend a lot of time thinking about these cases, and I try to craft solutions that address concerns and, really help these families. But the follow-up, how do I know that what I've got hopefully in place is actually happening? I just can't do that. So the clinic has been my eyes on the ground in those cases. I mean, they keep me apprised of how families are doing. They meet or at least touch base regularly with the children and the families. And and in some cases, they've even gone so far as to actually identify and line up social services that these really pretty dysfunctional families desperately need. If things aren't happening as they're supposed to, if there's some kind of crisis, they alert me and we bring them back for an emergency hearing. So all of that has just been invaluable to me, and I'm certain that through their efforts, these families have really been helped, and I appreciate that. Let me just close by thanking Marjorie and Val and the students. I see some of them from just a few days ago. For all your hard work and the many, many hours that it's obvious to me that you've put into these cases. I hope that the clinic will be around for many, many years because you've become such a valuable resource for the court, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Professor Vidic, and I just wanted to thank so much Justice Workman and Judge Minor for your wonderful comments, and you've been very inspiring to the clinic, and thank you. I'd also like to thank Dean McConnell for allowing this clinic to be launched, to Professor Marjorie McDermott for all of her hard work on behalf of children and families. And also, I'd like to acknowledge the students who are here. A couple are missing in action, undoubtedly on a clinic case. But if they're in a row, if you could just stand and be. Some of them are going to be speaking briefly at the end of this presentation. The students have just been remarkable, as has Professor Weiss, who we've worked with closely. And I think we've accomplished a lot in this first year. And I think that we're going to continue to do so in the future. My job right now is to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Professor Paul Bennett. He is a professor of law at the University of Arizona, where he founded its child advocacy clinic, and most recently co-founded a new multidisciplinary clinic, a child and family law clinic that is similar in many respects to the one we have here. Professor Bennett joined the Arizona faculty after teaching for several years at Cornell Law School. He graduated from Bates College in Maine and received his JD from Cornell. Professor Bennett began his legal career as a legal aid lawyer in New York, practicing with the Orleans Legal Aid Bureau in Albion, New York, and the Chemung County Neighborhood Legal Services in Ithaca. In addition to his clinical work, Professor Bennett is the co-director of the Himelic Juvenile Detention Teaching Program, a program in which law students teach weekend programs for children in lockup. He also directs the Arizona Law Camp, in which high school students are brought to campus for a week of law-related activities designed to stimulate their interest in the law and in continuing their education. In addition to his clinical legal work, Professor Bennett teaches classes in professional responsibility, juvenile law, trial advocacy, and law in the humanities. Last year, he was chosen by Arizona law students to receive the John Strong Teaching Award, a strong testament to his influence and impact on law students. Professor Bennett has long been active in Arizona's efforts to upgrade the quality of representation for children in the juvenile and family courts. He is a member of the nationally recognized Model Court Working Committee and has chaired its committees on children's voice and on parent-child visitation. Professor Bennett has long advocated that when children choose, they should be given a meaningful voice in the court proceedings that impact their lives. Professor Bennett has been a national leader in clinical education and in child advocacy. I've had the pleasure of spending time over the last few years with Paul at the annual clinical law conferences, in which law professors from across the country who teach in law school clinics go to share ideas, to generate new innovative methods of teaching clinic, and to recharge and inspire each other to not only teach students, but to fight for access for justice for those who lack the money or the power to secure their legal rights. And of course, as Justice Workman pointed out, children are in that category. I quickly realized why Paul is such a valued colleague in the clinical world. His devotion to child clients was obvious, as was his commitment to his students and to the difficult task of fighting to make children's voices heard in our courts. He exemplifies all that a clinical law professor should be: a great lawyer and counselor, a caring teacher, and a passionate advocate for justice. I've learned a great deal from Paul about kids who are abused and neglected, about juvenile justice, and about how to maintain a sense of humor and ease when dealing with situations that are often heartbreaking and near impossible. In addition to his clinical work, Professor Bennett has been deeply involved in both state and National Bar Association work. He co-chaired the state of Arizona's task force on professionalism and authored its final report. Recently, he received a grant from the American Bar Association to produce training materials for lawyers who represent children in divorces. Finally, last but in no way least, Professor Bennett is a father to 2 daughters and a grandfather to 3-year-old Hayden. He always mentions that Hayden, like all children, has a mind of his own. We welcome you, Professor Bennett.
Justice Workman, Judge Minor, Dean McConnell, Dean Videk, I like that term, Professor Weiss, visitors. Are you visitors or what's your title? Pardon? Visiting committee. That's cool. Faculty, students. Thank you for inviting me here. This is a total pleasure for me. I get to talk about 2 of the things I love the most, family law and clinical education, and to talk about them at the same time. I mean, I love other things. Hayden is a hoot. And I'm a Red Sox fan, and it's a hard time now, so bear with me. Thanks for the rain, by the way. I haven't seen water fall from the sky now since November. I live in the desert. It's really cool. What I want to speak about today is why I have the best job in the world, and I really do. And that's no offense to doctrinal teachers. Some of my best friends teach contracts, honestly. because I get to combine the things I love to do all in one. I get to work with the best law students. I get to work with them one-on-one. I get to watch them grow from students who don't know anything. And again, no offense to first-year teachers, they don't know anything. At least once every semester, our students have to stand up in court and they have to announce that they're certified law students under our student practice rule. They have to say that they're supervised by me and that I'm in the courtroom and that they have to say that, who they represent. And invariably, one of my students will be so nervous at the beginning of the semester that they'll stand up and they say, I'm representing Paul Bennett. You know, and I got to look around and, oh, okay, all right. At the same time, I get to watch them grow and watch them perhaps, and our students have done this, argue before the appellate court and explain to them why siblings should have standing when the state wants to terminate the parental rights of their other siblings and take them away forever. Or stand up in court and argue, no, you can't make this kid go to a different school just because you took him away from his parents and he's in foster care in another part of town, because that's the only stability this kid has. And I watch them do that, and it's just a wonderful experience for me. I get to do that. I hope it's a great experience for them. And that you're about to embark, or you already have embarked on this journey in child and family law, and it's just, it's fantastic. You're in for a treat. You're all in for a treat as this clinic grows. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share. It's just nice. It's nice. All right, child and family law. When I first started practicing law, it was the last thing on my mind, was that I would be working with children and families. I was a legal aid lawyer in Western New York. I was doing what I thought, early 70s was the good work, challenging the state and matters dealing with welfare and helping people with evictions. And one day I got a call from our local judge, and I was in a very small town. And he said, Paul, I need you. We're in the middle of a murder trial, and I've got a 14-year-old girl on the stand, and she won't open her mouth. Would you talk to her? And I knew nothing about kids. I didn't have kids then. I didn't deal with kids. But I went over and I talked with this girl, and I heard a story that just blew me away. This poor kid was being asked to testify in a trial against her mother. There were child protective workers there who were supposed to be helping her, who were putting pressure on her to say something. There was a district attorney who was putting pressure on her to say something. Her family was divided into two camps. Dad's camp, who wanted to put Mom away, wanting her to say something, and Mom's camp, and she loved her mother, of course, wanting her to put something away. And she was so nervous because she had told every one of these people what they wanted to hear, and now she was in court, and she was afraid she was going to get prosecuted for perjury if she told the truth. And I got hooked. I just got hooked, and I've never left it. It's so fascinating. There's so much going on. I had a little video to show you, but there's supposed to be a little device that would make that happen. So hang on a second. I'll just keep talking. Oh, it's right here. Cool. You guys are so high-tech. All right. This one needs no introduction, so here you go.
Don't make me destroy you. Luke, you do not yet realize your importance. You have only begun to discover your power. Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. I'll never join you! If you only knew the power of the dark side. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. No. I am your father. No. It's not true. That's impossible! Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
Family law is complex. We laugh, but we live through that. Judge, you know it now. We live through that every day. We live through not the same exact thing. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters. It's complex. We live with that every day because families are powerful. Families form us. Families shape us, whether they be positive or negative, whether they be toxic or something wonderful. We all belong to some kind of family, and it's not simple. It could be, the Cleavers. It could be the Jetsons. It could be the Crips or the Blood or the Godfather's family. I mean, it doesn't really matter what, but it's really powerful stuff, and it gets you. Who can't be moved, and certainly students are going to start to experience this, when they're involved with a mother who chooses the man who hurts her children over her children. You know, who can't be moved by that? Or who isn't moved when a parent goes face to face with their own addiction and they recover and they get their kids back? You know, who can't be moved by that? That's amazing stuff, and it gives you moments. Sometimes the moments are powerful. Sometimes the moments are just a little bizarre. I was in court a couple weeks ago when we had a child who was turning 18. She pretty much grew up in foster care. She was not adopted by anybody. Her mother showed up at her last hearing where she was actually saying she wanted to say goodbye to the judge. So she came to the last hearing, and Mom showed up. And the judge all of a sudden had one of those judge moments, which is, are you still represented by somebody? So he asked her, are you still represented by Mr. O'Leary? And the mother stood up in court and said, no, I'm not. Mr. O'Leary relieved himself the last time we were in court. And just as it sinks in, she stood up again and said, no, yeah, right in court, he relieved himself. You can't make that stuff up. On the other hand, you deal with some amazing problems. Can a mother move from Morgantown to Princeton because that's where her family is, but the father's job is here in Morgantown? How do you answer that question? What do you do when a state takes a child away from parents? What do you do when you have kids involved with drugs or gangs? A whole different kind of family law. What do you do with step siblings when they love each other, but their parents are split up and they won't communicate? They can't see each other. We've had some amazing cases. We had a case of a kid who had to undergo lung surgery, but she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she didn't want a blood transfusion. And so we were asked to represent her and give her point of view to the court, as the court had to make a decision about whether or not it should take over from the parents and allow a transfusion if that's what needed to happen. It's amazing. I represented a child who was denied a liver transplant. She was 10 years old, and the reason she was denied the transplant is the state didn't feel her mother could properly do the aftercare. So the solution at the moment was that. And what happened there was the state said, we won't give a transplant unless the kid is removed from the home and put in foster care. And the Child Protective investigator said, well, there's no reason to put this kid in foster care. Mom's fine. While they're battling, this kid's waiting. But that's not what I want to talk about. It's the ordinary case that matters. That's my message today. It's the regular, routine, ordinary case that we see every day in my juvenile court. 75% of the parents have a substance abuse problem. It's not something unique that we haven't seen before. Families split up every day. It's the ordinary case that you learn so much from in a clinical setting, and that we need courts to pay attention to. Well, actually, I lied. There's no such thing as an ordinary case. They're all different. The ordinary case is a myth. I want to show you one more scene if I do this properly. So indulge me for about 30 seconds as I fast forward. You don't really need to see Luke fall. This is from a movie called The Squid and the Whale. I don't know if any of you have seen it or not. It still hasn't fallen yet. I apologize. And this is a scene in which parents are trying to explain to their children that they're going to get a divorce. Here we go.
Just waiting for your mother.
Oh, Mom. Sorry.
Okay, all set?
Yes.
Okay. Your mom and I... Okay, yeah. Mom and I are going... We're going to separate.
You're not going to be leaving either of us.
We're going to have joint custody. Frank, it's okay. I've got an elegant new house across the park.
Across the park? Is that even Brooklyn?
It's only 5 stops on the subway. It's an elegant block, the fillet of the neighborhood. We'll have a ping pong table.
I don't play ping pong.
And we'll both see you equally.
How will that work?
We're splitting up the week, alternating days.
Why?
Because I love you and I want to see you as much as your mother does.
But there's 7 days.
Right.
So how will you split evenly with 7 days?
Oh, I've got you Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and every other Thursday.
Every other?
That's how we each have you equally.
That was your father's idea.
Don't do this.
How will I get to school?
There's a subway 4 blocks from the house. 4 or 5. No more than 6 blocks.
And what about the cat? Shit. Cat.
We didn't discuss the cat.
Your father will pick him up on those days when you're switching houses.
I'll have to drive here 2 additional times a week.
You got a place on the other side of the park. If you gotten a place near here, it wouldn't be a problem.
This neighborhood's gotten very expensive, Joan. It's very painful for me to stay in this neighborhood. You know that. Don't be difficult. I feel banished.
Oh, pickle. So, Dad, what will happen with the cat?
We'll figure something out.
That scene plays out all the time. One of the great things about adults is that we have no idea what we're doing sometimes when we're dealing with children. Now, here's my message today. This stuff's important. That's ordinary, but it's important. It's going to affect those children forever. Lest we think that these decisions don't affect children, look at Luke. You know, he got the hots for his sister. That's what happens when families are in the toxic mode and not in the rehabilitative mode. I have 4 points to make. Family law is important. It's not like it's an obvious point, I guess, but in practice it sometimes doesn't pan out. Second point is you can't do family law right if you don't understand a child's point of view. If you don't have that information, you'll be making a decision, whoever you are, whoever you're working for, whatever side you're on, without all the real important information. Third point is, it's 2 points. The state does a lousy job of raising children, and split parents don't do the best job either of raising children. So we can't be judgmental in these circumstances. What we need to be doing is trying to figure out what will work the best given the problem we have. And that's hard. That's not easy at all. And then the last point that I'd like to make is that clinical education is transformative. When you create a program like your Child and Family Law Clinic, transformations are going to happen. They're going to happen with the students. They're going to happen with your clients. They're going to happen with the courts and the court community, and they're going to happen in the legal community. So the rest of my talk will be geared towards that. When my students come to me at the beginning of the semester, in our very first class, I tell them, you're going to tell me 4 things. It's my prediction. They go, yeah. And the first thing you're going to say is when you meet your child client, one of your children clients, you're going to say, oh, wow, he's so cute. That one's easy. The second thing you're going to tell me at some point is, how can a parent do that? You know, how is that possible? The third thing you're going to tell me is, oh, my God, how can the state do that? You know, how is that possible? And then the last thing, at least I hope you're going to tell me is, oh, maybe my family's not so bad. All right. Family's important. Families are powerful. Families really change who we are. I mean, fess up. How many of you think your family is a little bit different? Don't lie. All right? Well, they are. They're all a little bit different. That's what makes this kind of remarkable. All right? You know, the Bundys are a little different. The Jodes are a little different. But they're all families, and they all have a long-term impact on everybody in that family. You can't, whatever your family is, and in my community, maybe your family is your gang. But it's a family, and it matters to you, and it will change you. So that's just kind of my first point. And because of that, there's no such thing as an ordinary case, because from especially the point of view of the children in that case, this isn't routine. This is their life. This matters to them. Whatever decisions we have to make, we can't make lightly. We have to struggle to do. You know, whether it's they want to see their parents more because they've been removed and they've been put in foster care, or they've been split up. And it's hard to tell mommy that I want to see daddy more because mommy doesn't like daddy anymore. And they can't really understand it. What they really want is for you to put the family back together again, but that can't always happen. Sometimes it does. And when they're your client, wow, you're learning a lot. You know, you're learning about client relations. You're learning how to communicate with somebody who's in distress in a way that will transform you. And that you'll take with you no matter what kind of law you do, no matter what kind of law you practice. It's just not ordinary. The transplant case was just something. We represented this 11-year-old kid, and all she wanted to do was to get a new liver. And then we had these adults fighting over whether her mother had the capacity to take care of her afterwards. Instead of, and then this is what we tried to do, was getting in the same room together and say, how can we make this work? And that's why family law is different, because it's not about winning and losing. If you're there in court, everybody's losing. And you're just trying to make it a little bit better for the people there so that, in the long run, they'll have some solution. And so you can't be judgmental. It's hard not to be judgmental. You know, when you're representing a teenage client who's rolling her eyes at you and not doing a thing you say, or you're representing a mother and you've said 1,000,000 times, would you not badmouth dad in front of the kids? This is just going to come back at you. It's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt your kid, and they don't do it. You know, we get judgmental. Mark Twain said, and I love this quote, we can't all be sound. We have to be the way we're made. And in family law, when we're dealing with family law problems, nobody's sound. Everybody's in distress, and they just have to be the way they're made. And sometimes the struggle is with the state. Because no matter what we want to do with kids, at some point, if things get really bad, the state intervenes, and then we have to deal with the fact that, maybe the state's going to be the kid's parent. That works well. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way, because sometimes we really have to take children away from parents who are abusive or using methamphetamines or coked out, or if the 8-year-old is getting the 6-year-old ready for school, something's not right. But what we have to do is step back, even in that situation, and be non-judgmental, because we know in the long run it may not be the best that's going to happen. One of my first cases, I represented a young girl who was about 300 pounds. She was 11 years old. And she lived in a very, very poor section outside of Ithaca, New York, called Buffalo Road. And it's just sort of its own community in its own place and its own time. And the state came in and they intervened because it's not healthy for a little 11-year-old kid to be that large. We got to represent her after she'd been in the state care for about 6 months. And when we came in, she was about 325 pounds. And when we talked to her, she was miserable. And so our courtroom strategy was to walk into the courtroom and ask 3 questions of the child protective worker. Question 1, how much did she weigh when you got her? Question 2, how much does she weigh now? And question 3 was, is she happy? And that was kind of like a stunning question at the time. Oh my God, we're not here to make people happy. And we're not at first. We're here to protect children. There's some awful things that go on, and sometimes we have to intervene. But what we were able to do is to show the court that maybe we need a different solution than just taking this kid in the routine way and putting this kid in foster care, because it's not working. A couple weeks ago, we had a remarkably similar case in a way. We had a kid who ran away. He's a Native American kid. He's 14 years old, and I use the word he lightly because he believes that he's really a she. He's a transgender, very difficult thing to do in a Native American society. And he was just flipping out. And so he was put in behavioral health center for a while, and what we learned is kind of extraordinary is that he's felt he's been a girl for a couple of years, but nobody listened. Nobody even knew about it. And once his voice began to be heard, we were actually, we could start looking at solutions. People were wondering why he drank too much. People were wondering why he misbehaved. It's because, well, he's not a he, and people call him a he, and he wants to be called a she. And it mattered. And there's ways to help people like that. So in that sense, it's just an incredibly complicated world, and we have to pay attention to kids' voice. We have to pay attention to what they have to say. That really matters. Now, sometimes they'll say stupid stuff. I'd like to live with Daddy because Daddy lets me play PlayStation all day. All right? That's not necessarily the voice we want to hear. But sometimes they know a whole lot more about what's going on than anybody does. Luke knows a whole lot more about what's going on. Search your feelings, Luke. You know it to be true. He knew something was wrong. He may not be able to articulate it. He may not be able to put his finger on it. But Luke Skywalker knew something was amiss, and that was going to change everything. You know, he shouted no, but he wasn't all that surprised. And so in that atmosphere, we have to where it's really important to try to figure out, what's going on in this kid's brain? What's happening? We were assigned to represent a 9-year-old in a termination of parental rights hearing. Father was bringing this proceeding privately. Mom was in prison because she had killed the 2 babies about 6 or 8 months before. And we were trying to figure out, how do you approach a kid and ask him if he wants to have parental rights with his mother terminated? And we asked the question, well, does he know? Does he know why this is all happening? How do we have an attorney-client conversation with a kid and try to figure out his point of view if maybe we're going to be the ones to tell him this awful news that this is what your mother did? And all the adults said, no, none of us told him. We were all afraid to tell him. The therapist said, don't tell him. This will be too much for him. All he knows is that mom's in prison. So that was our dilemma. Our adult dilemma was, we want to be attorneys. We want to represent this kid. How can we possibly represent this kid if he doesn't know what's going on? So very interesting. So we went to see him, and we asked him this question. Do you know why we're here? Oh, yeah, you're here because Dad wants to terminate Mom's parental rights. Do you know why Dad wants to do that? Yeah, because he killed my siblings. Kid knew. Kids know. They know an awful lot of stuff. That allowed us to actually explore his point of view, which was extremely complex for this little 9-year-old. And it allowed the court to know his point of view. And that, that makes the decision so much better. The other thing about family law is it's absolutely multidisciplinary. You have a relationship with the medical school. That's fabulous because you're going to get a different perspective on your clients and on where they come from and when their needs are, and that's just super. We, 2 years ago, pretty much over my strong objections, started to take in social work students in our clinic. My objections were, what happens when someone blurts something out that a social worker is required to report under Arizona law, and we're required to keep it secret? But nonetheless, we went forward. What it added to us, though, what it added to our clinic is the ability to see things different from the way lawyers see things. All right, you're lawyers, you see a problem, you try to solve it. That's what we do, right? We're discrete, we're linear in some ways. We call them cases. We call them clients. We give them a label. The social work students are a completely different world. They see a person. How can I take the best of this person and make that person more whole? How can I see a family and make that family better and more whole? And what we found is that working together, we're able to see things that we weren't able to see before because you don't know what you don't know. And then we were able to see some dynamics, and using those dynamics, I think it makes us all better lawyers. In the family court, you're inherently multidisciplinary. You have psychologists, you have therapists, you have probation officers. I mean, you have, and oftentimes you may have experts in particular fields, and it's just the nature of the beast is we have to learn how to do these things. So in your clinic, you're going to have a chance to see that. Am I going on too long? Okay, I'll finish up. But the best part about this is clinical legal education, which means that your students get to be out there in the real world, and they get to get their hands dirty, and they get to try stuff. And they get to learn things that you can't learn in the classroom. I'm not denigrating the classroom at all. Why did your drug-addicted parent miss her appointment? You get to face that kind of an issue. What happens when the judge doesn't appear to know the rules of evidence? You get to face that issue. Or what happens when the other attorney is acting like a real jerk? These are life lessons. What are the limits of the law? Why is it that we can't solve this problem within the law? Well, maybe because this problem took 20 years to percolate, and the law is just not in a position to do that. And these are the lessons that these guys are going to be learning, and it's great fun to watch them. They also learn the lesson, I hope they learn the lesson, that they don't know yet what they're capable of. There's nothing better than watching a law student dig deep, really deep, and come up with something special. And they do it. They do it every time. It's almost like I can trust it. Like, if I throw my ball down the right side of the lane, it's going to hook. I know that's going to happen. I know that when I hand stuff over to law students and they're motivated and they're full of passion that law students come with, they're going to find a solution that I never would have thought of. It's so awesome. It'll be transformative because not only that, they'll be able to go out in the community and they'll take that with them no matter what kind of law they practice. I have a student now who's the corporate counsel for Tucson Electric Power Company. It has nothing to do with family law, but every year he comes back, he helps us, and he convinces other lawyers that family law is really, really important. That's great. Someday he's going to be a judge, and while he's a corporate attorney, he's going to remember family law is important. This stuff is hard. I'm going to support that, and I'm going to move forward. I've had students who in their own lives have been changed by their contact with the kids they represent or the parents they represent or the people they represent. And they remember that when they have a client who's sitting in front of them with what appears to be a mundane problem. Well, maybe that's a lot more important than I thought it was, because I remember how important it was to my kid or to my mom or to my dad, whoever I represented. So I congratulate you on the journey you're about to have. It's an awesome journey. It'll be difficult. It'll be fun. It'll scare the heck out of you at times, but it's really wonderful, so embrace it. And thank you all.
Thank you, Paul. I think it's obvious to everyone how you're so impassioned about this, and that's great. I wanted to say just a couple more things. Paul mentioned our partnership with the hospital here, and I'd like to just comment on that. I mean, we've done a number of the types of cases that you've just heard about. Our clinic does work with abuse and neglect cases, work as guardian ad litem in various family law matters. We do special education work, an area which is vastly underrepresented in the state. And we do all sorts of different types of cases that relate to children and to improve the lives of families here in West Virginia. One of the things that we do, which is a key piece of the clinic, is we work with Dr. Steve Paul, who is in the pediatrics department at Ruby and at our Health Sciences Center. And we've formed a medical legal partnership with him and with the pediatrics department there. And as part of this partnership, the goal is that we as lawyers can participate in helping kids who are sick and their families meet the needs that are really important to making sure the kids stay healthy. So, for example, if a child has asthma and if the family is living in a rental unit that does not, has conditions in it that exacerbate the asthma, like mold, for example, we can intervene to get that mold removed to help improve the children's health. And we've worked with Dr. Paul in a number of cases this year, helping kids get access to disability, to different services, to help parents with custody issues. And Dr. Paul, if you just wanted to stand up and say a little bit more about that. Sure.
Thank you. I want to thank Dean McConnell and Professor Vidig as well, and comment. I'm also a Red Sox fan, but I haven't given up. I think they're still going to win the World Series if they can win a game. And they play the Yankees tonight. The medical legal program, which actually was founded by Professor Vidig here in West Virginia, is modeled after something else that came from Boston. Doctors who take care of children found out that it was all well and good to write prescriptions, but if the families didn't have the money, if they didn't have heat, if they lived in situations where there were environmental stresses, if there was abuse within the family, if there were insurance issues, they couldn't very well take care of the patients. And Professor Zuckerman, Dr. Zuckerman at Boston City Hospital, instead of hiring another pediatric endocrinologist, hired an attorney to work within his clinic, and that has developed into the medical legal clinic. The model that Professor Vidig has started here is working very well. The patients are becoming more slowly than we want, but nonetheless aware of the options of dealing with the legal clinic, and the law students have done a superb job in dealing with the issues that they face, and that in turn has made taking care of their health issues easier. In addition, it's, I think, a very good lesson for both the law students and the medical students to recognize that they're not natural enemies. There are lawyers who do great things that don't have to necessarily worry about being sued by lawyers all the time. And they see that where the interaction is between medicine and law, which I think is a very, very broad interaction and a very good opportunity for our students, both in the medical school and the law school. So I would like to personally thank the Dean and Professor Vidic for all the effort they've put in and what I hope will continue to be a successful program. Thank you.
And now, again, last but not least, 3 students from the clinic have graciously volunteered to give a very brief comment on, how the work has affected them, what they've learned from it, and what we've done. So I think the first person is going to be Natalie Hess. And, of course, all the students are third-year students, so they're about to be launched into real life.
Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm a third-year student, and I've been a student attorney in the clinic for the past 2 semesters here. My partner and I, Sarah, have done a number of cases, but the most memorable ones and the ones that have caused us to lose the most sleep probably have been those that involve child abuse and neglect. And abuse and neglect was not something that I really anticipated being drawn to before law school, but sort of the kind of thing that after you start doing it, you can't stop because you see how many children are still out there that still need help. So I fully intend to keep practicing primarily child and family advocacy after I graduate.
And one of the great things that Natalie and the other students have done is travel. We not only cover Monongalia County and Preston County, but we've been to Lewis County, Barber County, all sorts of areas up the hills, down the roads, going to visit our clients when they can't come to see us, seeing where they live, how they live, and learning in that process too. Sarah Martin is also Natalie's partner, and she's going to also briefly make a comment.
I think one of the most rewarding experiences for me as a student attorney in the clinic, and one of the more helpful things for our clients, is that as student attorneys, we're able to get access to information that our clients really need but have been unable to get on their own, which also helps them develop the tools that they need to help themselves when we're no longer around, which gives them a confidence in themselves that they didn't have before representation began. And that's something Natalie and I saw in a domestic violence case that we represented a battered spouse in, so that's been extremely rewarding. And though I'm not going to be practicing family law to start with, I do hope to do my pro bono work in the area because it does affect you and it sticks with you. So this clinic's been a good experience all around.
Thank you. And our last speaker is going to be Savannah Hall.
I came to law school and I knew that family law was what I was interested in. So when I heard about the clinic, I went to Professor Vidic and I told her I really, really wanted to be in it. I was so excited. But the medical legal partnership of it was not something I was too sure about, but part of the process was to go on rounds with Dr. Paul and just kind of meet with patients and talk about different ways that we might be able to help. And when I went, I got to have what I think is an amazing experience because he had a patient who had leukemia, and that morning he had taken a bone marrow sample, and we went up to the lab, and he put it on a slide, and I saw a bunch of purple blobs that apparently were, I don't know even what they were, but purple blobs to me. And what he saw was that the child had gone into remission. That's like the moment, I think, that he realized that. So I thought that was just like, if we hadn't done the medical legal partnership and I'd just gone to law school, I would never have had that moment. And I just thought that was worth sharing. And part of a unique experience that the Medical Legal Partnership brings to the school. So, warm, fuzzy feeling, I guess.
And lastly, Suzanne Weiss, would you like to come up and say a minute of word? Well, she's been a key player in the clinic, and many a times we've been in the clinic trenches, and she's said something that, yes, you can come up for a second. Anyway, that sort of, to make us all help realize that lawyering can be fun, even in hard moments. Okay.
At this time, the members of this year's clinic would like to take a couple seconds to present Professor Vidic and Professor Weiss with a small token of our appreciation for all the hard work. It's actually a large token. This gift is actually for next year's clinical members in case they get hungry while they're working late nights, weekends, or my personal favorite, over spring break. Yeah. There you go. It's the microwave.
Thank you. I think at this point it wraps up our presentation. And again, we thank all of you, and we look forward to your support and working together to help kids in West Virginia. Thanks. There's a reception outside to follow, and we hope all of you will join us.